Hello, and welcome to the world of Pokemon. My name is Professor Noki, and you're watching Prof. Noki. Today, I will be discussing the end of Pokemon. Yeah, you heard that right. Pokemon is going away forever. Or at least some people would have you believe. Due to recent controversies surrounding the National Dex removal from Pokemon Sword and Shield, there has been a lot of outcry about how Pokemon is over, and the developers don't care anymore, and they're moving on to other things, and Game Freak no longer has any stake in Pokemon, with what appears to be just a constant stream of criticism against games that we haven't even really played yet. For those of you who haven't been following along with the story, I'll give you a brief overview of what exactly has been going down. Just prior to the E3 conference this year, there was a Nintendo Direct that focused specifically on Pokemon Sword and Shield. During this Direct, we got to see the first real look at the games, since what we were given previously was only a teaser trailer back in February. It was shown the updated graphics, the brand new open world concept, Pokemon in the overworld, and so much more. And although many of the graphical models in the game were not quite up to par yet, especially the player character, the Pokemon, some of the surroundings and landscapes, many people regarded this as just an early look at the game, fully aware that as time grew near to the release of the games, a lot of these aspects would be corrected. But overall, there really wasn't a lot of negativity that could be said, and that was even taking place about the games. Then, just simply a week or so later, E3. Now, the initial reaction from E3 was still very positive, with some people being able to play early access to the game. And from what people were able to see, they had nothing but great things to say about the gameplay, the battling, and the overall quality of the graphics in the game. Then came the Nintendo Treehouse, where they showed off live gameplay of the wild area. And this is where everything went awry. Most people were not very pleased with the overall blandness and low graphical quality of the wild area, no matter how cool the actual concept seemed to be. Though the characters and Pokemon themselves in both the battle sequences and in the wild area were much higher quality than what we had seen previously. One of the scenes from the Treehouse event that really stands out in my mind that is indicative of this is when the player character is sending out his score bunny. And just the overall shading and lighting and graphical fineness and purity to the image was amazing, like nothing we have seen in any Pokemon game yet. Which in my own opinion really makes me feel patient when it comes to the overall graphical quality of the overworld, as I feel like in the coming months, those are the areas that they will be fine-tuning and tweaking to match that quality of the player character in Pokemon as well. The main blowback though, an issue that continues to be a problem among the fanbase, was when Junichi Masuda revealed that they would not be including all 900 or so plus Pokemon that will exist as of the release of these games. Meaning that many fans who have been working diligently year after year to collect all the Pokemon from each series would not be able to transfer every single one of their Pokemon into these upcoming games. Now, this is not the first time in a game where Pokemon has had this sort of Pokeblock, but it seems to be much more of an issue now, considering Pokemon is moving on to a system that is capable of handling much more than any previous system they've developed for. And in the last generation of Pokemon on the 3DS, there was access to all the Pokemon. I've clarified many times how I'm very much on the fence about this decision that Game Freak has made, and I really truly can understand both sides. I do agree with many people here on YouTube that there seems to be maybe a greater reason for why they've done this that they have yet to really reveal or unveil to us that plays into the overall move that Pokemon has been making lately. But I'll get into that a little later into the video. As for now, I'd kinda like to jump back to the original point at the beginning of this video, which is the overall doom and gloom that has been centering around the end of Pokemon, and how this controversy of the no national dex proves that this is the ultimate end and Pokemon will be no more as we know it today. To discuss this, I feel like we first must go back a little bit in time, to the beginning of Pokemon, and figure out whether Pokemon has ever encountered such controversy before, and how and if it was even able to overcome those controversies. I was a 90s kid, and grew up along the original hype of Pokemon. First boom of the anime, the trading card series, and the original games on the Game Boy. It was mass Pokemon hysteria everywhere. And like with a lot of hysteria over differing trends, many parents became concerned over the overall effect that Pokemon played on their children. With many parents being concerned of the overall theme of forcibly catching these creatures and then making the player move through the game by battling them against one another, all alone as a young child in the game, with some extreme parents going as far as to compare Pokemon to demons. There were whole groups of parents that were devoted to taking Pokemon down and removing it off of the air and getting the toys off the shelf, and ultimately just trying to rid Pokemon from America. In some communities, it was even successful. I even remember in my own community, they had considered banning the trading of Pokemon cards at school because they had likened it to a form of gambling. This was along with its decline in popularity with its release for its third generation after its massive success of Gold and Silver, which very easily could have spelt the end for Pokemon, and many people thought it was. However, with due diligence, Game Freak, the developers of the games, put forth everything they had to continue the series forward for the hardcore fans that didn't want to let Pokemon go, and in their next generation made a major comeback in popularity, support, and quality of their game, which has truly continued with each generation thereafter, many of which have had their own share of blowback and controversies regarding things that were or were not included, graphics that stood up to expectations or did not, and limitations that the developers themselves had when making the games, and they put into the games for us the player. But with each passing generation, they were still completely successful in delivering fans all across the world an excellent gaming experience that many people still loved and enjoyed. Even leading up to more modern games like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which had major controversy about them when people found out that only the original Kanto Pokemon were going to be included and their Alolan variants. Or the fact that the story itself was essentially cut and paste from the original Pokemon Yellow games. And the graphical style itself was a lot more of a cartoon style than what we had seen in Sun and Moon, which leaned a little bit more towards that realistic 3D look. But the games were still absolutely successful and delivered a great gaming experience for many fans all across the world. These are just some of the controversies and blowback that Pokemon received throughout its gaming history. There has also been tons of blowback they've received from parts of their anime, like with the episode that highlighted Porygon where many children were sent to the hospital from blindness and headaches and seizures. An episode that was pulled from the air and poor Porygon has never been seen since, even though it was Pikachu's fault. But through each of these scenarios, the Pokemon Company as a whole, made up of Creatures Inc., Nintendo, and Game Freak, all have worked together to get through and figure out a way to adapt and always bring fans back to the series. And truly, I see the controversy surrounding the national decks much in the same way. I feel like there are going to be fans regardless that are going to be let down of the Pokemon that are or are not included into these games. That's only natural. I was very disappointed as a child playing Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, finding out which Pokemon I wasn't going to be able to play that I loved from the Kanto and Johto regions. It was even more frustrating considering I had all of the link cables and everything I needed to trade and transfer, however, you could not do so between the second and third generation. But this is something as a child that forced me to utilize a team I otherwise would not have, and the Hoenn region actually ended up becoming my ultimate favorite region of all time, and that probably plays into that in some way. And that somewhat brings me to my next point, which is something that in my own life I have been really figuring out and utilizing as a way to look at things, and that is expectation versus reality. It can be really easy and tempting when you're very excited about something that's going to be happening in your life to just start wondering and dreaming of all of the possibilities of how it's going to be and how it's going to play out and how you would really love it to happen. With the release of each new Pokemon game, there's always dreams and expectations. People have been asking for an open world Pokemon game for generation after generation, and nobody ever thought that we would actually get one, until only a few weeks ago when we were all proven wrong. A lot of times your expectations can ultimately blind you from the intentions of other people. Many people don't have the same intentions and aspirations, goals, dreams, or expectations that you do, and the developers of these games are no different than that. Their ultimate goal for making these games and the direction they want to take the Pokemon series does not have to, nor should it really ultimately align with every single Pokemon fan. Not to mention, it would be incredibly difficult, actually impossible, to include every single Pokemon's fan checklist in every single game. The differing mechanics from the games would just not work out together, and would really tangle up the series, especially for younger or amateur players. Now, the reality of the situation is that Game Freak is a game development company that is making games for profit but also for the enjoyment of their fans. Just like many other gaming development companies, they have a passion for this art that they do. And a lot of the staff over at Game Freak has been with them since the original days, Masuda included. I know a lot of people have this skewed reality that somehow Game Freak has been losing influence over Pokemon because of the success of mobile games. However, I don't know how that could possibly be true when you look at the experience that they've tried to develop in the upcoming Sword and Shield games. They've literally only showed us a small blip of that map, which is the wild area, and there are massive cities and other expanses of this region that we have no clue what they look like or the experiences they could bring. And already the games look massive and immersive and beautiful, really. So I know everybody had this expectation that we were going to be able to bring all the Pokemon with us through this journey now up into the 8th generation. And I do actually believe that we probably still will be able to in the 8th generation. But for these first entries into the 8th generation with Sword and Shield, for the time being, that does not look like that is the reality of the situation. But that does not take away from the reality that these games are still very high quality, amazing games to play, took a long time and a lot of devotion to develop, have included many other mechanics that fans have been absolutely dying to see for so long, and some that we don't even know yet. And like I said in my last conversation, ultimately, patience is what is needed until these games are released here in November and we see for ourselves exactly the kind of game that they have delivered us. Until then, I'm just going to stay excited, stay positive, look forward to the coming information, the brand new Pokemon that are going to be unveiled, and not just spread constant hate and negativity. I don't feel like it's productive or healthy for the conversation. And really, it just likens you to the 24-hour news cycle that we have that just spews constant negativity for the very fact that it somehow seems to garner more views, though it does not do anything positive at all for Pokemon or its fan base. Which really leads me to how I would like to wrap up this entire conversation in breaking down the overall impact of what this is doing to the Pokemon community. Here on YouTube, I really do see a split on how the information is being provided. On one hand, you have people delivering facts, basic opinions, delivering a conversation that's open about their likes and dislikes about what's coming up into the games. I feel like this is the way things should be approached. We can have an open conversation about what we do like and what we don't like, but still be overall excited to play the games when they come out. I mean, after all, not every single Pokemon game that we've played has been absolutely perfect. In fact, none of them have. But each one has been absolutely special and provided an amazing experience and memories for its fans to enjoy. On the other hand, there seems to be many other voices here on this platform that look to just sit and spew the same negativity day after day, repeating the conversation over and over again, as if that alone is going to correct the problem. Meanwhile, giving somewhat of a bad look to the overall community and how we approach our grievances with the game. I'm sure that the Pokemon developers would love to hear our feedback, good or bad, to how to make future games successful for them and for us. To assume or think that they're just giving up on the Pokemon franchise altogether is just absolutely absurd in my opinion. When it comes to the mainstream impact that this all plays into, honestly from what I see, it's very minimal. Pokemon as a franchise has really just been steamrolling forward lately with so many different avenues of content and media. They are truly permeating that mainstream culture like never before. The massive success of Detective Pikachu is absolutely proof of that. And the player basis for Pokemon Go is indicative of that as well. Many people of which have never even picked up one of the handheld versions of the game at all. So for those families that now also have a Switch, and have never really played a Pokemon experience outside of maybe Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee or Pokemon Go, Pokemon Sword and Shield games will be delivering an absolutely amazing and breathtaking experience for them. When it comes to us hardcore players, the impact is a little bit twofold. It's impossible to deny that this controversy has split the hardcore fan base right down the middle, with many people saying they're going to outright boycott and not buy the games at all. There are many hardcore players though, such as myself, that have been around through many generations that had their own shortcomings and understand that each Pokemon game is still an opportunity to experience the Pokemon world in a way like never before. And I truly feel like the overall outcome from all of this is going to be that the Sword and Shield games are still going to be beloved, amazing experiences in the Pokemon world, and credited as one of the first games that delivered us an open world experience, a true Pokemon in the overworld experience, probably an amazing storyline to follow, and who knows what else. And that Game Freak will continue to work diligently to develop Pokemon for fans of all variety, from the novice to the hardcore player. So in conclusion, I do understand that it is not popular to be positive about these games right now, and I hope that you understand that just because I have a positive opinion about them does not mean that I think absolutely every single choice that was made for the games is right. But I just don't understand how constantly being negative about these games that we haven't even played yet is in any way, shape, or form going to help us as a community move forward in this Pokemon world. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, this has been Professor Noki, signing off for Prof. Noki.
Wow, nice.